Em, and I ask a lot of questions.
I'm Pia, and I don't have a filter.
We'll be asking questions you dare not ask.
And giving answers that might be a little too honest.
So listen up, come and eavesdrop.
This is The Chismis Table. Hi everyone, we're back with another episode of The Chismis Table.
Yeah.
So today, I'm so excited because we have another guest who's one of my closest friends again. And he has one of my favorite life stories of all time. And I don't know if you know this, LJ, but I have told your story to so many of my friends because it's just so unique, but also such a heartwarming, di naman ending, but where you are right now is a testament to your character that we've seen throughout the years. So, I mean, when we were kids, we are always asked what we want to be when we grow up. And most of the time, the answer is not what the reality is. I wanted to be a zookeeper. And unfortunately, I am not a zookeeper right now. And we're also expected to follow a certain timeline na parang in our 30s, we're supposed to figure out what
do you want?
What our goals are. Our career is supposed to be like this. We have to have this money and we have to have saved up for retirement and blah, blah, blah. But most of the time, people just don't know what to do and have no idea what the goal is. Like, ako ngayon, I just got engaged. But it just made everything more, unsure than ever before. And I'm already almost mid-30. But there are those few people who have the guts to keep experimenting, to keep trying and keep looking, and eventually the hard work and the scary days pay off. And this is what we have with LJ Almendras. Hi, Al. So LJ's in New York right now, and that is part of what we all want our American dream to be. And it looks different for every person. It will look different for me, and I hope I finally get it eventually. But LJ's American dream is a very, very long, I think, journey for him. So we met, I don't know when, kailan ba? I was in yon.
20.
Oh no. Hindi ko na maalala. Navy, 2010?
21.
10 years ago.
11 years ago.
11 years ago.
11 years ago, yeah.
Wow, dekada na.
Diba?
Oo.
Oh nga, I didn't realize, my God, 11 years ago na pala yun, LJ. And look at where we are. Joke lang.
You're both abroad.
Yes.
And I'm still stuck here.
Well, you chose that life, Em.
I know. Hindi kasi ako risk taker like you guys eh. So.
Ay nako, if we're talking about risk takers, it's LJ.
Yes.
So you met in Eon 11 years ago in a PR/event career. And then he traveled to Vietnam, back to Philippines, to Seattle, to New York.
Wow.
And even your New York, the start of your New York story wasn't exactly easy. And he somehow finds all the right friends, all the right people, all the right network to get him to where he wants to be. So, LJ, where are you now?
So I'm in New York City. I live in Ridgewood, Queens. But I work for a restaurant, chain of restaurants. It's a Chinese company founded by a group of Yale students. 5 years ago. I started, like, my first job was at Eon, and that's where I met Pia. So I was working in PR and events. And eventually, after 5 or 6 years, I got an offer to move to Vietnam to work for a sister company, Edelman. And it was another like PR job. And it was definitely like a step up because it was like a senior managerial role, and it just made sense that after 6 or 7 years of working my job in Manila, like I wanted something new, and the whole idea of travel and working in a different country like just sounded so appealing. So I took the offer and I moved there, and I stayed there for almost 2 years, and it was a major change, and it was fun, it was exciting, but also very challenging because it was the first time like throwing myself in a foreign country. One, it was challenging because the cultural differences, the language, and again, as I mentioned, like it was such a big role. Eventually, like I basically, there's no other way to put it, but and Pia knows the longer version of this story, but um, I just lost my passion for the PR world, and eventually, like I just woke up one day and then realized, like, oh, I think this is not for me anymore. I wanted I wanted to change, and so I was talking to family over the phone with friends, and they gave me all the good advice, saying like, hey, you need to stick it out. It's just you're probably just homesick, and all those reasons were right. But then something was telling me that it was time to like do something else. So I quit my job without any job offer or
Yeah.
any
Wow.
leads. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna figure it out. Like I had a little bit of savings, and then I was already in Vietnam, and I was thinking, you know what, I think I'm just gonna travel around Vietnam. Basically, traveled around Vietnam for a month, and then I said, you know what, I'll check out Thailand, I'll check out Singapore, I'll check out. So I traveled around Southeast Asia for like 4 months. So like I was being like a nomad slash hippie, like I'm just gonna like rent beaches. I went to Cambodia, and like it was the best time of my life. Like it was really great. Sometimes you just need a pause, like, and
Yeah.
that was good for me because like I said, like I didn't have a job that that would be my next step. So it's like, I'm gonna go for a vacation. I'm gonna explore different places and just like figure out what my next move would be. And so after my 4 month travel, I went back home to the Philippines, and then that's when I felt like oh my god, like I'm not ready to go back home. Like there's something about travel that just like, at least for me, that um, you know it's just like a good way to like know more about yourself. And I think a lot of that has to do with the actual the idea of like being away from home. And I would
Mm-hmm.
always feel like being at home with with friends, with family, like like the career decisions or choices that I've made has always been attached to like family expectations, like friends. And so when I went back home, like I was just like, okay, what's my next move? And then I was talking to my sister in Seattle back then. I was like, what's your next move? And then she's like, you know what? Why don't you just come to the U.S.? Like maybe it's like, can I find a job there? Is it like, well, your best shot would be like to go back to grad school. So yeah, so I basically stayed in the Philippines for one more year, and then I just was doing freelancing. I was saving up, and then after a year, I got into this program at the University of Washington. I took a course in UX design or user experience design. I wanted to go back to school, but it was sort of like a stepping stone to and one of my mentors back home always told me this when I was looking for career advice. It's like wherever you go, you'll always find a job. I mean, you're a hardworking person. Like you'll make it work. You're pretty independent. But the most important thing is that where do you want to live? So like I was like, that is one of the best advice. And it was Junie Dunwando, which was our CEO back in the PR firm that where me and I met. There's also like, let me premise it by saying like like being queer or being gay in the Philippines wasn't the easiest for me. Coming out like just being yourself and being comfortable. I came out at a very late age. So like it took me a while to like really be comfortable with my own skin, and like it was just like and I think that is also part of the reason why I wanted a life outside of the country, and like outside of home, because I always felt like, I want to continue exploring myself, my identity,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why life and career, they're so much attached to each other, I think.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I did. So I made the move, and I, of course, I made sure that I was doing well in grad school, and eventually, like while I was in grad school, like I made friends, and then I was dating, and I was just like, I got closer to my sister, who I said like I needed to, like, I felt like I needed to reconnect with her because we were apart for like almost 10 years, and it was just like a completely new chapter, and that was when I started like entertaining like interests, like, and that's when I got into cooking, and when I like I've always wanted to like
Mm.
explore my creative side. I never really had the courage to like pursue what I wanted, and that was because there was a lot of self doubt, and there was a lot of like just like lack of confidence. And cooking was different for me because one, a lot of it was attached to like missing home. I was still, of course, in grad school, and I did well. But then my heart wasn't in grad school, and it wasn't. It was expected because, like, again, it was just like a stepping stone. So I entertained the idea of food or working in food. So
Mhm, mhm.
I was doing pop-ups. Like I reached out to like Filipino chefs in Seattle, which is like there's a big
Mm-hmm.
Filipino chef community or Filipino food scene in Seattle. And then I was just like hitting them up, and I was just say like, hey, maybe I can like help you out in your events or your catering or your restaurant, and like just like the doors just open, and it was like proof
Yeah.
that if you really want to make a shift or make a change, as long as you put your
Mhm.
heart into it and you are willing to do all the legwork, then you'll make connections, and the
Yeah.
people that you have a shared interest would help you
Mhm,
make it
mhm.
happen. So while I was finishing grad school, I was very active in that Filipino food community in Seattle,
Mm.
and I worked with a chef, and right after graduation, of course, like I had to like find a job. So it was like I felt like I was in like reality check. Like, okay, like you have this newfound love for food, and I mean, that was when I was like sort of like trying to decide what's my next move now. Like I have this
Mm.
degree, and I paid a ton of money for it, and I just can't throw it out of the window, right? And so like that was when my sister sat me down, like, hey, does it mean that you can't do both? You can still cook, and but you need to find a job because you need to like survive.
Because you need money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't just throw away, your education and
Yeah.
your years of experience. And yeah, she was right, and I did.
Mhm.
I worked for a tech company, and I got a job, and I was part of the PR team. It was like, okay, I'm back again, and that's a funny thing because like really, it was looking for a job in the U.S. at that time was really difficult because one, it was Trump country.
Mm.
When I moved to the U.S., it was 2016. That was the year that Trump got
Mm.
elected,
Mhm.
and that was also the year wherein companies would always ask, what's your visa status, like how long are you in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. And then all those stuff, and it added to the whole pressure. It was like like so many things that you have to factor in, like the political climate. You have to factor in, your status. I'm still a third class citizen in the U.S. Like, and
Mm.
you just have all this, factors that could be a deterrent, and like more than anything, like it really affected me in like an emotional way because like
Did
I
did
was
you
my
lose did you lose opportunities because of your visa status?
hell yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it was like, yeah, because my resume was inferior compared to other people, Americans.
Mm.
Like, I mean,
In that field, you mean?
Yeah.
yeah, or not just in that field. Like, I mean, I was educated in the Philippines. Like that will always be seen as
Right. Yes.
Okay.
um, and also, like they would also like, visa H1B or work visas here are quite expensive. Like you have to be like the best of the best to be able to secure a job and prove that you're worth their investment. And it was already like hard for me because like my heart wasn't in PR anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was when and yeah, so I fought like I just like really waited out. It took me over like a year to find that PR job. And when I got the PR job, I was just really unhappy. Like I was just like this I'm so like this is like I this is the I'm like I found myself in the same position that I was back in Vietnam, and I was just like was I convinced myself like okay, I'm gonna stick it out. So like I had like 1 or 2 months to like prepare for my performance review, and I was like trying my best at work, like prove to them that I'm worth it. And then towards the end, towards when we were conducting the performance review, but basically they asked me about my visa status,
Yikes. It really
and
is
it's
the
like
kicker.
it was part of the review, and I was like, oh, I'm only allowed to work legally in the US for a year, and then they were saying like, oh, we didn't know about that because basically they were saying that changed everything, like you know they got back to me and said like we're sorry but we can't offer like yeah we can't offer you this, we can't regularize you. I was so pissed. Like that feeling of like you convince yourself to want something that
Yeah.
you don't really want and then you got rejected, and I was just like that was a weird feeling for me, but then it had to happen. It had to
Yeah.
happen, and so I just like it needed to happen. I needed a job, um, but I was feeling very low, and I said like, and then my sister I had this conversation with my sister, and I was like, well, what are you gonna do now? I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna find another job. I was also going through a breakup, so that was one of it. And I was just like, things weren't going very well for me, and then naman ako like, I need a change.
Well, that's good because that's always your trigger.
Yeah.
And it's always been a trigger, like I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just like again, it was like a stepping stone. I always saw moving to the U.S. Not moving to the U.S., but getting that program in grad school was a stepping stone for something else. But at that time, I wasn't clear of what that stepping stone was. And then that's when I started to listen to my gut. So okay, like you tried your best. It was them who rejected you because of your visa status, and then you you're going through some difficult times in Seattle, and you could use a change your environment. You have this. You're very passionate about cooking, and that's the only thing that was like giving me life at that time. It's just like I was just like cooking like every meal, like um, and I said like what, this is the perfect time. Like I'm just gonna find a job in food. Then again, it was a challenge. Like, how am I gonna get a job in food if I didn't go to culinary school? Like, my visa status is very much dependent on like it has to be related to by with your field of study. And then I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go into legal.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and my sister was just like, you're insane. Like, hindi ka and that was like really running in my head. Like I was like, yeah, I had this. I was just like, what? I'm so sick of like the corporate world. Like I'm sick of like having to prove myself to people that I don't even want to work for or want to work with. So might as well do something or pursue something that I really want. And you know what? If I fail or if I get into trouble, I'll get into trouble. I say that so recklessly, but
Trouble means jail, LJ.
I know the U.S. government is listening right now. Anyway, that's just to show that's just to I'm just sharing it because that was how desperate I was, and I was just like when when you're heartbroken, like you do crazy things and you think of crazy things or crazy solutions. But then my sister was like, here's what you're gonna do. Like you're gonna okay. Like my sister was very like just she has always been my voice of reason. She said like, okay, try to find a job in food, like volunteer or like like what you're doing, do popsicle and stuff like that. Just take a break from looking for a job.
Mm.
And then maybe that's what you need. Don't rush into like looking for your next corporate job or like a job in PR or a job in like UX design. And then I said like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do that, but I'm not gonna do it in Seattle. I'm gonna do it in New York.
Mm.
Mm.
Because
Why?
yeah,
Why you know? Why in New York?
because like it just made sense to me because well, the biggest influence was I had like a couple of friends who just moved to New York. I moved to New York City because I had friends that I could that could help me out and help in the sense that people just like show me, connect me to other people. But it wasn't the reason. The reason was never because like they were UX designers. But anyway, the second reason was New York is such a like a metropolitan city compared to Seattle. Like it's very diverse. Like there's like, great food scene here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's I looked up Filipino restaurants, and at that time there was three Filipino restaurants that were really popular, and like and I was just like hitting up the chefs that I worked with in Seattle, like, hey, how's the food scene in New York? It's like, you know what, it's the best. Like they gave me contacts. Like you have to meet this Filipino chef, and I just got really inspired, and I told my sister like, yeah, I'll take a break. I'll go to. I just made it sound like I was taking a break, but I was like in my heart, I was like, I'm
You're
not.
moving.
Uh,
That you're moving, you're not taking a break.
yeah, exactly. So again, I was like, my sister was like, do you have money? Do you have savings? Like, yeah, I have savings. I can live for like 2 months without a job. And I said,
That's
like,
so
okay,
short.
very short. And this is
God.
real. And I'm like, I only have 2 months worth. And I said, like, I'm not gonna like Airbnb or pay rent. I'm just gonna sleep in like friends' house. And that's the reason why I moved to New York. Because like I have like two friends, and I can for the first month I lived in my one friend's couch, and the second month was with my other friend's couch. And I was just like basically a couple again back to being a hippie. And so I booked a one-way ticket. It was $99, which was I bought a one-way ticket to New York City. That was March 1 of 2019. Oh no, 2019, yes.
19, yeah.
Mm.
And then I arrived. So before that, I sold everything. Like not everything, but I said like I acquired like personal belongings. I lived in Seattle for 2.5 years, and I said like what, I'm just gonna bring two suitcases. I'm gonna sell everything, like everything else, and mostly like just like
Wow.
furniture and like clothes. It's like I don't need 5 black jackets. I only need one. I don't need I was like decluttering or uncluttering my life, like only the
Yeah.
essential, only the basic things. And because I had no plans of coming back, and then my sister was like, maybe you could put it in a storage unit. Mahal yan. Like, I'm not gonna do that. And then she was telling me like something's telling me I'm not coming back. I said like, well, who knows? You never know. And so yeah, I moved to New York March 1, 2019, and then I just had a list of restaurants that I would go to and people that I would meet.
Yeah.
And on my second week in New York, I met this chef who's from Hong Kong, Hong Kongese, um, graduate of Yale, cognitive science, 26 years old, and he's a
Mhm.
chef.
Oh, wow.
How did you
And
meet him exactly?
so Chef Lucas did an internship back in Seattle years ago
Okay.
with this Filipino chef. If you look it up, Archipelago is a really good tasting restaurant in Seattle. His name is Aaron. The owner and chef is Chef Aaron. So they both work at the Modernist, which is like a test kitchen, and that's how they met. Aaron basically told me like you have to meet this kid. Like he's only 26 years old. He opened like 5 restaurants already.
Wow.
Ooh.
He's from Hong Kong,
Is
and
this Junzi?
yeah, this is Junzi.
Oh my.
He's
Wait,
the head chef.
before you continue your food story, it's important to note that LJ has a natural talent for food. Hindi siya yung bigla na
Okay.
lang, di ba?
Uh,
Because people might
yeah.
think, I'll do whatever I want. I'll go to New York. I'll find whatever. Hindi.
Okay,
Even
okay.
when LJ was here, no, not here, in the Philippines, he would always cook for us. I mean, it helps he's
Oh.
Cebuano. And Cebuanos
Okay.
are always good with food, right? So he would
Mm.
cook for us. And because he's also naturally artistic, plating kung plating. As in
Plating.
talagang
Oh, okay,
artwork.
okay.
Tapos ang sarap.
Yeah,
Right? So
yeah.
I think that's also important to understand that you went through the steps, but also because you had the talent. It's
Yes.
not something that you did out of the blue.
Oo.
I may have downplayed that my experience. Maybe.
So, matagal na. Matagal na
Oo nga.
talaga. I guess the only thing is you just never considered it as a career
As a
before.
career.
Yeah.
And
Mm-mm.
back in Seattle, I lived there for 2 years and a half, and like a year and a half was spent doing pop-ups while I was in grad school.
Mhm.
So the other part of that was when I was working for a chef, a Filipino chef, who had who had like weekend markets in Tacoma, which is south of Seattle. So yeah, that's a quick catch up on like how I got into food.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you meet.
I was wondering nga about food kanina eh. Kasi I'm like, nag-aral naman ako how to cook. How come it's not as good?
Yeah, how come it's
No,
not what?
it's not
Not
as
as
good.
good. Like, I follow the entire recipe, pero when you taste it, like, there's still
Okay
something
lang.
sticky. Parang hindi siya restaurant level. So
No,
I
like
would wonder,
LJ. Yeah.
It's
mm,
LJ's.
it's so good that you say that right now
yeah,
because my job right now is basically recipe development. So it
Mhm.
is part of my job to make sure that the people making the food who are
yes.
not chefs, who are not cooks, are able to cook the food exactly the way that we designed it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Wait,
So
why would you encounter people who do not cook? So the
because
restaurant hires people who don't cook?
right because case in point, let's bring it back to home. Jollibee. The
Mhm.
people who fry fried chicken and Jollibee are not trained cooks or trained
Right.
chefs necessarily.
That's good.
Like there are minimum wage workers who are just trying to earn money, and they're not
Mhm.
necessarily. It's not a career, direction that they're necessarily, but it's a means to provide,
Mhm.
and that's what we're trying to do at Junzi.
Nice.
What we're basically is we provide employment to people who minimum wage workers basically,
Mm.
and it's not the category of Junzi is like it's in the fast casual category. I don't know if it's a category that's been applied in the Philippines or anywhere else, but basically it's healthy-ish fast food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
The vision of Juicy is basically to be like a Chinese Chipotle of the US.
mm.
So back to my meeting with Chef Lucas. So when I was meeting up with him, that was I wasn't expecting that this was the kind of restaurant that I'd be working in. Of course, like I was expecting like, oh, I want to work in an Italian restaurant or a French, like there's more recognizable um, cuisines or more. I don't want to say more respected, but I guess more recognized,
Prestigious. Yeah.
prestigious because I mean those are yeah. And when I met up with Lucas, he my I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking for connection.
Mm.
Um, when I stepped into his restaurant, Junzi, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. It's like, yeah, it's like Chipotle but Chinese. Like they were selling noodles and they were selling Asian inspired drinks and Asian inspired snacks, and there was like it was very the idea was very very cool. And so I sat down with him, and then I told him my story, and he told me his. It's like I'm a graduate of Yale, didn't go to culinary school, just traveled a lot, did pop-ups, and it was kind of similar story, and it was very comforting to like meet someone like a similar, with a shared interest in a similar story.
Mhm.
And it was very inspiring. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's like, so what's up? Like, how can I help you? It's like, well, I'm looking for a kitchen job. So what do you want to do in the kitchen? Because I want to be a cook. Like, I want to, just get in there, work behind, the kitchen and cook for people. It's like you have to. He gave me a list of his favorite restaurants in New York, and then eventually he said, go to these restaurants, eat their food, and if you're happy with the food, talk to the chef and ask for a kitchen tour. And I was so excited about that idea. Like, this is so cool. And he said, oh, by the way, we have a job opening. And I'm not sure if you're interested in this, because at that time, like I showed him my resume, and he noticed like, oh, you worked in the corporate world for like 10 years, and you went to grad school. Like, are you just gonna throw all of this away and just like be a cook? It's like, yeah, why not? um, it's like, yeah, because like we have a job opening. So like, I know you're looking for a kitchen job, but this job is actually 80% in the kitchen and 20% behind your computer doing like dealing with Excels and PowerPoint presentations and stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, I'm listening. What is it? So it's a food designer job. So food designers, like as you know, like I've shared you, like Junzi is a fast casual. It's like our goal is to hit 100 stores in like 5 years. We want to like have presence in all over the U.S. We want to educate people about, not just Chinese American food, but we want to educate them about regional Chinese cooking and food, and a lot of that is very dependent on scalability. And and that was and it was like, okay, this is so interesting because I studied this in grad school because like UX design is all about like, design thinking, design process, scaling things, passing on creativity to, not what knowledge transfer and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I can reverse, I get this. And so like, yeah, it's like, and then at first I was thinking food designer is like a food stylist job. It's like, no, it's all about like, you basically help me um, make sure that all my recipes are transferred or like are converted into training materials or documents. Um, and it's recipe development, or there's
Okay.
research and development involved.
Yeah.
And the goal is like, I was eating like a tomato egg noodle dish. I said like, your job, if you get this job, is to make sure that that tomato egg noodle is exactly the same in like all the other stores. Just like how you eat McDonald's French fries. Like
Yeah.
wherever you go in the world, McDonald's French fries is the same.
Yeah.
And it's not just following a simple recipe, as you said, and like it's
Yeah.
make sure like sourcing. There's a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
factors that come to play. So it was like a very corporate talk. I was like, nahilo ako. Ito na naman. Do I want this? And it was very interesting for sure, especially coming from a kid. Call him kid because it's like he's only 27 and he's just like very impressed. It was very inspiring. And then I said, like, you know what? It sounds really interesting, but I'm gonna get back to you. I'm not gonna say no, but I'm just gonna like visit this list of restaurants that you recommended. And then so yeah, went I went to this restaurant called the Matza Cafe. It's an Italian restaurant in Williamsburg. And then I tasted the food, and I looked at the menu, and there was like, it's an Italian restaurant, but there was a there was like a dish, like the way they described the menu was like it was pasta with fish sauce, and there was like a pork belly dish with chicharron, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool! Like this menu is amazing. Like it's not traditional. It's not traditional Italian. So basically, the chef likes to infuse Asian ingredients and flavors into his menu, and I was just like blown away by the menu. And I sat there and ate like two of the dishes, and then I talked to the chef like, "Hey, can I ask for a kitchen tour? Chef, are you looking for a cook?" Actually, I am. And I was very honest. Like I have zero experience in the commercial kitchen, but I'm willing to stage. Like in the food business, stage basically working for free. And then he said like, okay, I'll start. So, and then after start, so I started for like, so he offered me like to work for like 2 or 3 Saturdays, and then he said I'm like I'm willing to pay you minimum wage after this.
Mm-hmm.
Like you seem like a good guy, like you're very committed, you're very dedicated, you seem very hardworking. And then I did the math. Shit, minimum wage. Kaya ko ba to?
How much was minimum wage in New York?
$15 an hour.
Okay.
And then the hours are crazy. You work 6 days a week. You only get one day off. And then you work for 11 hours.
Oh no.
Wow.
Oh shit. Okay.
Wow.
And then and this is really important, I guess, in the whole idea of career talk is that sometimes when for people who are willing to take risks and for people who are go getters, like be careful what you ask for because if
Mm-hmm.
you ask for it, you will get it. But then when you're presented by it, like you have all these questions like, am I ready for this?
Right.
So that was when I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna say no to you. So that was when I was like, I had this idea. What if I can partly keep my corporate life and also be a
Mhm.
cook? Craziest idea.
Right.
So I talked to Lucas. I went back to him and was like, hey, went to that restaurant that you recommended, love the food, want to work there, but it's minimum wage. And I need to survive. I need to live. Like, this is New City. It's so expensive. And I said, like, can we do part time? I'll do part time here and part time there. We worked out the details of it, but eventually I was working 6 days a week,
Mhm.
4 times at Junzi, and after 4 days at Junzi, and then 3 days with one day overlap at that Italian restaurant.
Mhm.
And it was just like I was just like so tired. I did that for a whole year, and then COVID happened.
Eh,
Um,
but
but
I
it was
mean, it's still such a, I guess, lucky for you to be able to do that. I mean, you found jobs in an industry that you had no
No.
professional experience in, and
yeah,
you were able to find people who will give you the flexibility to work the hours that you want to work.
Yep.
I mean, that's also
Yep.
incredible. It's something that
Yeah.
won't ever happen in a normal situation.
Mhm.
yeah. I guess yeah. I consider myself lucky for sure. And all this happened in a span of less than a month. Like I got
Mm.
the job offer at Junzi like on the last month of March, and then
Gosh.
at Amata Cafe, the Italian restaurant, he offered it to me also around the same time. He's like, I work for free for like 3 weeks, and
Mhm.
um, and I was just like, I called my sister, and I was just like, this is crazy. Like I have two
Yeah.
jobs
Same
Exactly.
time, yeah.
now, and but I'm just gonna be killing myself and killing myself for like having like working 11 hours a day, like with only one day off, and yeah, I truly feel like yeah, like I said, like really be careful with what you wish for, especially if in a place like New York, like there's just like so. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's really the land of opportunity here. Like it's
Mhm.
crazy. Like, there's just like if you know how to hustle and like you know how
Yeah.
to like just put yourself out there, like you will find
Mhm.
you will find something. As long as you put your heart into it and like work hard, like you will survive. And
Mm.
yeah,
You, you know what really makes me nervous? Because this is what I'm seeing, the key is to your success or going nearer your goal is similar to what Gian was saying last episode,
Mhm.
and it's networking.
Yep.
And the key to having the career you want and the key to having the customers you want is finding the right people, and it's a mix of knowing the people and also luck maybe.
yeah,
um but that makes me kind of nervous because I hate networking. I have no I have no network. No, I have, but I mean, that's kind of scary because again, not a lot of people
Mm-mm.
are comfortable with that kind of strategy, I guess, but that's really what it takes for
yeah,
anything.
right. Make the connections that are and as much as you say, like I hate networking too, and that was probably one of the reasons why I didn't like doing PR anymore.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I was forced to attend events and talk people that don't
Mm.
necessarily connect with in a
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
way. It's like at the end of the day, it's a job.
Yeah.
But there's a special like there's a, s- there, network the kind of networking that I was doing was very I mean, it was very personal and was very real. It was like I was
Mm.
actually um,
Is it
curious.
because you're interested in what you're
Yeah,
networking about?
yeah, I was interested. I was just more than interested. I was passionate about it.
Mm.
I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know. I wanted to learn. And yeah, I mean, if you're naturally curious, and if you just um, like make like connections with the people that you share
Mm.
like a passion with, like it networking becomes so easy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Becomes tolerable to say the least.
Yeah. That's true. I can just imagine because maybe like for example for us Pia, it's all just work. That's why it's so
Mm.
hard for us to network. Unlike if we do something that's really related to what we like,
Yeah. To a hobby or
it's
whatever.
gonna be way easier for us. So anyway, LJ, what are you doing now?
So yeah, I'm still so COVID happened, and
Mm.
I had to let go of my restaurant job. The
The
Italian.
Italian one. Okay.
Oh.
So like yeah, it was yeah. Cool. The lockdown happened in March, and I started that job around March too. So it was just like one whole year. And luckily, I still have the Junzi job, and
Mm.
we had to let go of like close to 100 employees because we have like six
Oof.
stores.
Oh my. Okay.
And yeah, they were just like cutting people left and right, and it was just like so sad to see people go.
Yeah.
And then that's when we had to like really cover for the people that we lost. And yeah, we were during the pandemic. I was staying the subway from Queens to Midtown,
Mm.
which is like a 15-minute travel time. Get there in
But
the
weren't you
morning.
able to open a new one, a new restaurant?
We did, and that
Oh.
was again a crazy idea. And um, so of course, like we had to. So the thing with Junzi is that it's very progressive Chinese food. So again,
Mm.
like I said, it's like healthy-ish food. Like it's not your common Chinese food. Like you'll never see, you'll not see like the common Hainanese chicken, or
Mm.
you won't see like Chinese American food there like lo mein or chow mein or congee, and the more
Mm.
like the Cantonese cuisine, which is more common in America and
Yeah.
also back home in the Philippines. So it's very much progressive. Like we experiment, want to educate. So to a lot of people who are not familiar, of course, because we're educated. Like it's hard for them to order food that they don't see like physically.
Mm.
So because indoor dining was shut down, and
Yeah.
people were either cooking at home or ordering food online. But of course, they want to order something familiar,
Yeah.
like they would order pizza, or
Mm-hmm.
order Chinese American takeout, or etc. So like, and that's where we had to like refocus or re-strategize. And the idea was like, why don't we open a restaurant that's focused on takeout?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, where we know
With
how to make Chinese American food.
yeah.
Why don't we?
So with food that people actually know, because to be
Yeah,
honest, Aljek, I've eaten in Junzi several times, but even I, as an Asian, it still looks unfamiliar to me, and
oh
maybe
yeah,
and
Oh.
because there are some combinations that I am not used to, or I guess even in the Philippines, Chinese food is Filipinized.
Mm.
So it's not as familiar. So I can only imagine how strange it would be for non-Asians or
yeah,
Asian
Yeah.
Americans who have never set foot in Asia.
yeah, yeah.
So Eat
So
Nice Day is more familiar.
right, and that's why night we had to go back to the drawing board and see like, okay,
Mm,
what works for the market during these times, and
yeah, very
let's do
smart,
let's
man.
do
I
Chinese
know.
American. And
Yale nga.
uh,
Yale nga. Ang talino. Galing.
and the good thing about that is that there was also our research team did a study of like there was a did a study and found out that there's a steady decline of Chinese American restaurants
Mm.
because like the Chinese people who immigrated to the US basically opened restaurants for survival. It was the only thing that they knew
Mm.
how to do, right? Cook
Right.
their food
Mm-hmm.
and sell it to Americans. And the second generation, the generations that came after that, are not necessarily, they're educated.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily they have like broader skill set. They don't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
want to stay
Mm-hmm.
food, or they're not
Mm-hmm.
passionate about food. So these Chinese American restaurants, or mom and pop shops as they call it, are like closing down
Mm.
because like they've already provided for their family, they're
Yeah.
retired,
Yeah.
and their children are taking care of them. So yeah, there was a study that there was a good decline, and so like nice with the birth of Nice Day, we're actually um, keeping like we always consider Chinese American as a separate cuisine
Mm-hmm.
compared to like Chinese
Chinese. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
cuisine, and we're doing it for a survival of this specific cuisine. And
Yeah. And it's also done very very beautifully. You know what I mean? Because the even here in Florida, the Asian restaurants always look really bad, unfortunately, because siguro yun na nga, because they're put up by first generation immigrants who really just wanted to put up a restaurant. No design, no nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
food's good, of course, but it's not a place you would like to hang out in.
yeah,
And it makes sense why they're dying, because people are also becoming a bit more picky with where they
Yeah.
eat, how
Really.
the environment has to be, how they feel about where they are.
exactly.
um
Ambiance, the
mhm, yeah.
yeah,
And
Mm-hmm.
Nice Day and Junzi even are
yeah,
very very modern, and you wouldn't, if it weren't for the name, you wouldn't immediately think it's a Chinese or an
Yeah.
Asian restaurant. Kasi nga,
right,
it doesn't look like the typical Asian American mom and pop
Mm-hmm.
restaurant. It's very, very
Mm-hmm.
nice and very modern looking.
right. And yeah, when we were brainstorming and when we were developing recipes for Nice Day, we made sure that okay, we want to make Chinese American food, but we don't want to. There's this word in the culinary world that is really overused, and it's elevating. You hear a lot of people about or chefs or like cooks saying like,
Mm,
oh, this
mm.
is this is this is pancit canton, but it's elevated. Instead of you think, yeah, and you just like I mean whatever that means. But basically, it's sometimes when we're elevating a dish, like you lose the
Uh,
usually you lose the essence of it.
yeah.
And when we
Mm-hmm.
were developing recipes for like sweet and sour chicken or orange chicken or John Cho's chicken, like we're not at first like we were putting like shishito peppers instead of bell peppers. We were putting
Yeah.
strawberries instead of pineapple, and like we had all these crazy ideas. And like you would, I mean, we went there actually, and then when we did a tasting, we did a series of tasting, and then we realized like what, this is not going to work. Like we're not here to elevate. We're here to just pay homage to what Chinese American
Right.
cooking. Better packaging because we want it to be like the best takeout experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not overly sweet. We want it to be well balanced. If we're selling fried chicken or crispy shrimp, like we have to make sure that it's crispy after a 45-minute delivery time. Those were the
Ooh,
things that
okay.
those were the challenges that we identified. We're not here to get a James Beard award, like for elevating
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to like pay homage to the cuisine,
Yeah.
and we're not trying to like not even I don't think like reinventing is even the word. We're just like paying
Just making
homage to
it right.
just making it right. Like
Mm-hmm. And
and
also
it was
Asian food isn't, I wouldn't call it fancy. It's
Yeah.
homey, diba? Parang it has to be
exactly.
comfortable.
For
It's
example,
not
yeah.
It
Yeah, and
doesn't.
it's like we won't say it's authentic, and we won't say like every time we do like PR, um like press releases, like we'll never say that it's authentic or
Mm.
it's
Oh
traditional,
my
but we
gosh, when I
always,
move, can I work for you?
yes.
Pag nagka-Junzi or nice day na dito, my God, please hire me.
Junzi in Florida, why not, di ba?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Ang
the
Pero
rest
daming
of
Asian dito.
yeah, walang sweldo muna, Pia. First month.
Mm. I have a family. Wait, I have 15 minutes. Kasi yung brief overview ni LJ, sinagot na niya
Oo
lahat ng
nga
question.
eh. Ang ganda
how
nga ng...
can
But
oh my
it's
god,
great. It's great. I love it.
Yes.
See,
well,
diba? So
how you
inspiring.
edit it. Yeah, this is what I said that I would be brief, but pinwento ko na.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's super inspiring. I think it's like something you read off a novel or something, diba?
Exactly.
Parang
Exactly.
what? There's a real life person na doesn't have to come from the slums who has this kind of stuff. It's not a rags to riches story, guys. Hindi lahat ng may ganyang story kailangan mahirap. So,
Lakas ng loob. Yun lang talaga.
yun.
Maraming taong walang ganun. Anyway, we'll move down to some of the last few questions. I'm really interested to know, do you think this is the career for you, or is this just another stepping stone towards something else?
The honest answer to that is I hope so.
Hope so what? That it's the career or stepping stone?
Yeah, this is it. I don't know. I mean, never say never, I guess, and that has always been my thinking. But also, like, all I can say is that I'm very happy where I am right now,
Mhm.
like with what I'm doing. I found a sense of purpose in what I'm doing.
Mhm.
It's nice to be working with people that, when I was working that PR job back in Seattle, like I was the only Asian person in the room. I was the only brown skinned person in the room, and that also has an effect on like on that had an effect on me. But now, like I come to work, you know, 80% of the people there are immigrants,
Yeah.
and
With
it's
your people.
yeah, it's like feel like this is home. And it's funny because earlier I said like I wanted to be away from home, but when I got here, like I was looking for home, some piece of
Mhm.
of home, if that makes sense. Um, and like yeah, it's like we're looking out for each other. We're still going through this crisis, and it's nice to be dealing with this crisis alongside people that treasure and people that you
Mhm.
believe in, and like but yeah, and I'm still very passionate about food. Um, um, like right now, I'm even like thinking of like as things start to normalize,
Mhm.
I want to find like what's my next, not necessarily next step, or it's not next step anymore for me. It's like how can I branch out? And I'm
Yes.
looking
Yeah.
into looking into food styling and looking into
Mhm.
recipe development, consultation for other restaurants who want to like focus on the Asian cuisine and maybe Filipino cuisine. So like I'm
Right.
trying to branch out. Just to keep myself inspired and motivated. But still in the realm of food for sure.
Mm.
Um,
So,
yeah.
final words on, and there are a lot of people who are like this. For people who don't know what they're doing, don't know what to do, don't know how to find what they want to do, how can they bring themselves closer to finding out what they are supposed to do in life?
Um, I guess just like explore. I think that was one of the things that when I was giving you a brief background of myself, which wasn't really brief, but just the whole idea of like putting yourself in a place wherein you're not like putting yourself into the unknown basically. Like whether it's a new country, a new city. I mean, you don't have to travel to be in a new place necessarily. You can surround yourself with people who are who come from different walks of life. Just talk to people, make connections, um, and just have that explorer mindset, and eventually you'll find something that will inspire you or like will spark your interest. And then once that spark happens, just continue nurturing it. Like imagine yourself like, what if I do this? What if I, like that has always been a thing. Like, can I imagine myself as a chef, or can I imagine myself working in the kitchen? Yeah, that's all really I can say. Is just like continue exploring, and don't be afraid to imagine yourself to be in a different place, doing something completely different, because you know it's it's exciting. It's exciting to put yourself out there. It's fun rather than just doing something. And of course, I say that like it's I make it sound so easy, but
Yeah.
I don't fail to recognize the privilege that I have.
Mm.
If it
Mhm.
weren't for my sister who came here
Mhm.
first, if it weren't for family back home who supported me, if
Mhm.
it wasn't for the friends that I met in Seattle who moved here
Mhm.
and like sort of like it's like so yeah, I have a lot to be thankful for sure, and I do recognize and acknowledge all the privilege.
The Chismis Table.